Human Rights Watch has released 2 reports on the deadly threats faced by civilians in the embattled Iraqi city of Mosul, not only from Islamic State terrorists, but also from the Iraqi forces. The first report speaks about indiscriminate munitions being fired at civilian populated areas. The organization adds that the fighting in West Mosul is even more deadly for civilians than the earlier battle for the city's eastern part. And we spoke to Human Rights Watch representative Ahmed Benchemsi, who pointed out that the use of such munitions in civilian areas may amount to war crimes.
The laws of war are very clear. They say that whenever there is a gathering of civilians, all necessary measures must be taken to avoid the loss of civilian life. Well, when you're fighting indiscriminate weapons, as is happening right now in West Mosul, you are doing the opposite of that, because you find a rocket and you're firing a rocket and you don't know where the rocket is going to land, and it might very well take many innocent civilian lives. So this is what is happening right now in West Mosul, and it is a blatant violation of the laws of war and possibly a war crime if it is done at a large scale and in a systematic manner. So the government should just stop doing that.
Our correspondent on the ground is Murad Gazdiev. He filed this report from Iraq.
And you talk to people who've run, who got out of Mosul 3-4 months ago during the initial stages of the operation to liberate Mosul. They tell an entirely different story. They tell of a precise, of a measured liberation campaign where, the bombs were on target, where the airstrikes targeted exclusively ISIS. When you talk to people who got out a week ago, a few days ago, they describe an entirely different campaign, one which is much more dirty, much more savage, perhaps even desperate to go along with ISIS's ferocious defense of what it holds in Mosul. Here are some of what people have been saying.
يعني عيشتنا شو صارت يعني واحد ينقصف المعمل وبيته وراح بيته زلمته يروح يعني شنو حياتها وظلنا كل مسكن هنا.
الطياره نعم ضربته ايه الحرب ضربته ما خلت فيه كل شيء نهائيا كل شيء بس طلعنا يعني بس احنا عاوينا وضربنا بطلع قدرنا وطلعنا والبيت كله انتهى راح البيت ضربوا طيار القتل يمنا جوارينا 2 عندهم اطفال انقتلوا ومره همينا يعني كانت البيت هم انقتلت يعني بيتهم تاذى وهم كانتهم هم تاذت يعني توفت ماتت وجهال 2 توفوا.
All the people we've talked to, they've heard of instances of airstrikes hitting civilians. But to be fair, we must say here that all of these civilians also say that ISIS fights exclusively from populated areas. And here lies the disparity, that when this happened in Aleppo, the 100,000 people in besieged eastern Aleppo that were held hostage by Nusra Front, by Al-Qaeda in Syria, the media reacted very differently.
Russian and Syrian planes obliterated rebel-held neighborhoods of Aleppo.
Wave after wave of Russian-led airstrikes continue to pummel the eastern side of the city.
Russia and the Syrian government are launching an offensive. Hospitals are targets in Syria, and the regime has been bombing them ruthlessly.
And this is the odd part, because you can go to all of these refugee camps here in Iraq. Access is very easy for journalists. You can talk to people in hospitals, people who've just left Mosul, and they'll all tell you the same story about airstrikes hitting civilian targets. Yet we don't hear much mention of it at all in the mainstream media.
Earlier, we spoke to former UN spokesperson for Iraq, Saeed Erekat. He believes that much more needs to be done to deal with the growing humanitarian catastrophe in Mosul.
Every ordinance that is fired will inflict casualties. No doubt Mosul was the capital of the caliphate, so they will fight until the bitter end. They will use civilians as human shields. They will use structures that are designed to aid the public, such as food storages, hospitals, anything, so they can, to fight to the bitter end. So I suspect, or not I suspect, I probably, we can rest assured that there's going to be many, many casualties, and unless there are measures that are taken to really look after these emergency kind of situation, not only by the Americans and the coalition, but definitely by the United Nations, other humanitarian organizations, definitely the government of Iraq, definitely the militias that are participating in the liberation of Mosul. All these groups need to know that they have to take measures, or at least they be held accountable. They have to take measures to spare human lives and civilian casualties.
Another concern expressed by Human Rights Watch over the Mosul fighting deals with prisoners suspected of links to Islamic State. According to the organization, there are more than 1,200 such detainees who face an uncertain fate. Among them are children as young as 13. And they are held under conditions that Human Rights Watch calls horrendous. At least 4, in fact, have died while waiting for a verdict on suspicions of links to terror. Here's Human Rights Watch Representative Ahmed Ben-Chemsi again.
We have documented that about 1,200 people are held in absolutely horrific conditions in a group of detention centers in Iraq. And those people are accused of being part of ISIS. So, I mean, fine, they can be checked, but not obviously not in this way. They should be granted all the guarantees of a fair trial that any expected person is guaranteed. People are dying in them for the lack of proper medical care and medical attention. So this is the most urgent task that the government should undertake. And then it should guarantee all conditions for fair trials for these people, because being accused of being ISIS, of being a member of ISIS, is not a justification to violate all the rights of the people. Fighting ISIS is not a blank check for abuses. When you violate the rights of people, you do not fight terrorism efficiently. On the contrary, you create the conditions for more terrorism to come.